The hallways of the Galactic Science Academy sparkled under the light of three suns, their crystalline walls reflecting rainbow patterns across the floor. Tom Wells adjusted his environmental suit's temperature control as he walked, his boots making solid sounds against the polished surface. Even after 6 months on Station GL7, he still couldn't get used to the lighter gravity. The message from Dean Float had been unexpected. Tom was the only human teacher at the academy, and most of his work involved research rather than teaching. The aliens still weren't sure what to do with the Deathworlder in their midst. As he approached the dean's office, the door membrane rippled, indicating he could enter. Inside, Dean Float, a being made of swirling purple gas contained within a transparent shell, hovered behind his desk. "Professor Wells," the dean's translator crackled. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Of course, Dean Float," Tom replied, taking a seat in one of the gravity-adjusted chairs. "Is everything all right?" The dean's gaseous form swirled faster, a sign of excitement or anxiety. Tom still hadn't figured out which. "We have a situation with our junior xenobiology class. Professor Glow has taken emergency leave to undergo mitosis, and we need someone to take over immediately." Tom raised his eyebrows. Teaching xenobiology to alien students. That was new. Usually, the academy kept him away from direct student contact, worried that his death-world nature might frighten the younger aliens. "I understand this is unusual," Dean Float continued, "but you're the most qualified. Your experience with Earth's diverse ecosystem makes you uniquely suited for this position." Tom leaned forward. "Won't the students be concerned about having a human teacher?" The dean's gas patterns formed complex shapes. "Perhaps, but that's precisely why we need you. The latest survey showed that 89% of our students still believe humans are dangerous predators who might snap at any moment. This fear is holding back scientific cooperation." Tom couldn't help but chuckle. If only they knew that his most dangerous activity lately was trying to keep his cat, Mr. Whiskers, from knocking things off his desk. "The class starts tomorrow," Dean Float said. 20 students, mixed species, basic xenobiology with a focus on ecosystem interactions. Tom's mind was already racing with ideas. Maybe this was the chance he'd been waiting for. An opportunity to show the galactic community that humans were more than just the scary species from a death planet. "I'll do it," he said firmly, "but I'd like to modify the curriculum slightly." The dean's swirling patterns slowed. "Modify how?" "I want to teach them about Earth's animals. Not just the dangerous ones everyone fears, but all of them. Especially the ones we formed bonds with." "You mean your pets?" The dean's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of fascination and horror in his tone. "The predators you keep in your homes." "Exactly." Tom smiled. "Did you know that humans have lived alongside other species for thousands of years? We've developed deep emotional bonds with them. It might help the students understand us better." The dean was silent for a moment, his gaseous form slowly circulating. "Your species continues to surprise us, Professor Wells." "Very well. You may adjust the curriculum, but please, try not to frighten the students." Tom stood up, grinning. "Don't worry, Dean. By the end of this course, they'll see a whole new side of humanity." As he walked back to his quarters, Tom's mind was already planning the lessons. He passed a group of crystalline students who quickly moved to the other side of the hallway, their structures tinkling nervously. Soon, he hoped, such reactions would be a thing of the past. Entering his quarters, he found Mr. Whiskers sprawled across his desk, batting at a holographic display. The orange tabby cat looked up at him and meowed. "Guess what, buddy?" Tom scratched behind the cat's ears. "We're going to teach some aliens about Earth's pets, and you're going to help me show them that not everything from Earth wants to eat them." Mr. Whiskers purred and rolled over, showing his belly, hardly the behavior of a fearsome death-world predator. Tom laughed. This was going to be interesting. Looking out his window at the endless stars, he felt a surge of optimism. Maybe this class would be the first step in bridging the gap between humans and the rest of the galactic community. All it would take was showing them that even a species from a deathworld could be gentle, caring, and capable of forming bonds that transcended planets and species. Tomorrow would be the start of something new. The classroom fell silent as Tom Wells entered. 20 pairs of eyes, some compound, some crystalline, some gaseous swirls, all focused on him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He noticed how the blue mists had drifted to the back corners of the room, their cloudy forms huddled together. The insect-like hives had formed a tight cluster, their antennae twitching nervously. "Good morning, class," Tom said, placing his teaching tablet on the desk. "I'm Professor Wells, your new xenobiology teacher." A brave crystalline student near the front raised a facet. "Is it true you're from Earth?" "Yes," Tom replied with a smile. "The planet you call Deathworld 7. A wave of nervous chittering and whistling swept through the room. One of the hives actually started to vibrate, creating a soft, buzzing sound. "Don't worry," Tom said, keeping his voice gentle. "I'm here to teach, not hunt anyone." He paused, letting his small joke ease the tension. A few students made sounds that might have been nervous laughter. "Today," he continued, "we're going to start with something special. I want to show you some images from Earth." The holographic projector hummed to life, and an image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a massive gray wolf, teeth bared, powerful muscles visible under its fur. Several students gasped. A blue mist named Spark actually floated up to the ceiling in alarm. "This," Tom explained, "is one of Earth's apex predators, the wolf." He changed the image to show a lion, then a tiger, then a bear. With each picture, the students seemed to shrink further into their seats. "Professor," a hive student clicked nervously, "why are you showing us these monsters?" Tom smiled. "Because of this." The next image showed a golden retriever lying on a couch, belly up, tongue lolling out happily as a human child hugged it. "This is what we call a dog. It's descended from that wolf I showed you." Confused murmurs filled the room. A crystalline student's facets flickered in puzzlement. "You made the monster small." "Not exactly," Tom said. "Over thousands of years, humans formed a partnership with wolves. They became our friends, our helpers, and eventually, our pets." "What is pets?" asked Spark, who had finally floated back down from the ceiling. Tom changed the display again, showing a series of images: cats curled up in laps, hamsters being gently held, fish swimming in aquariums, birds perched on shoulders. "Pets are animals we share our homes with," he explained. "They're companions we care for, who give us friendship in return." The class stared at the images in silence. Finally, a small voice spoke up. It was Pearl, one of the youngest blue mists, her form a gentle shade of pale blue. "But they have sharp teeth," she whispered, "and claws. How do you not get eaten?" Tom chuckled. "That's the amazing thing. These animals learn to be gentle with us, just as we learn to be gentle with them. It's about trust and understanding." He pulled out his tablet again and showed them a video of Mr. Whiskers playing with a toy mouse. The cat batted the toy around, then flopped over to show his belly to the camera. "This is my own pet, Mr. Whiskers. Tomorrow, if you're all comfortable with it, I'd like to bring him to class." The reaction was immediate. Half the class drifted, scuttled, or crystallized backward. But Pearl moved slightly forward, her misty form showing hints of curious pink swirls. "It won't eat us?" she asked. "No," Tom assured them. "Mr. Whiskers mostly eats special pet food and spends his time sleeping. He might be curious about you, but he's very gentle." As the class ended, Tom noticed something interesting. While most students hurried out, a few lingered, stealing glances at the pictures still displayed. Pearl especially seemed fascinated by the image of a child hugging a cat. "Professor," she drifted closer, "how did humans learn to make friends with other species?" Tom smiled. This was exactly the kind of curiosity he'd hoped to spark. That's what we'll be learning about in this class. Sometimes the scariest things turn out to be the most surprising. Walking back to his quarters, Tom felt hopeful. Yes, there was fear to overcome, but he'd seen something else today too. The beginning of understanding. Tomorrow, when they met Mr. Whiskers, would be the real test. He just hoped his cat would be in a friendly mood. Tom arrived early to prepare the classroom for Mr. Whiskers' grand entrance. He brought a small cat bed, some toys and treats, anything that might help show his pet's gentler side. The cat carrier sat on his desk, Mr. Whiskers purring softly inside. Students trickled in slowly, each one freezing at the sight of the carrier. The hive students clustered together near the door, their antennae pointing straight at the mysterious box. The crystalline students refracted light nervously, creating tiny rainbows across the walls. "Good morning, everyone," Tom said cheerfully. "As promised, today you'll meet Mr. Whiskers. Please try to stay calm. He's more likely to be scared of you than you are of him." Pearl, the young blue mist, had positioned herself closer to the front than yesterday. Her misty form showed swirls of both fear and excitement. "Before I let him out," Tom explained, "remember that sudden movements might startle him. He's in a new place with beings he's never seen before." The class watched in tense silence as Tom opened the carrier door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pink nose appeared, followed by whiskers, and finally, an orange tabby cat stepped out gracefully onto the desk. Several gasps filled the room. A crystalline student chimed in surprise. Mr. Whiskers sat down, curled his tail around his feet, and began cleaning his paw as if he were still at home. "This," Tom said softly, "is a cat. They're one of Earth's most popular pets. Mr. Whiskers here is 3 years old, and he's lived with me since he was a kitten. A baby cat." Pearl drifted slightly closer. "Those are the sharp things," she whispered, pointing with a tendril of mist at Mr. Whiskers' claws as he groomed. "Yes, those are his claws. He uses them for climbing and playing, but he knows to be gentle." Tom reached out and scratched behind Mr. Whiskers' ears. The cat immediately began purring louder, leaning into the touch. "What's that sound?" asked one of the hive students, antennae twitching with curiosity. "That's purring. It means he's happy and comfortable," Tom explained. "Would anyone like to try petting him?" The room went quiet again. Mr. Whiskers, having finished his grooming, stood up and walked to the edge of the desk, looking curiously at Pearl. His tail went up in a friendly question mark. He's looking at me." Pearl's misty form wavered nervously. "That's a good sign," Tom assured her. "The raised tail means he's friendly. Would you like to try petting him? Your misty form might actually be perfect. Cats often like gentle touches." Very slowly, Pearl extended a tendril of her blue mist. Mr. Whiskers sniffed it curiously, then pushed his head against it. Pearl's whole form brightened in surprise. "It's soft," she exclaimed. That broke the ice. Other students began inching forward. The crystalline ones were particularly interested when Mr. Whiskers started playing with a laser pointer, chasing the red dot around the room. Even the hive students relaxed when they saw how the cat flopped over for belly rubs from Pearl. "On Earth," Tom explained as they watched Mr. Whiskers roll around with a toy mouse. "Cats were originally kept as hunters, catching small pests. But over time, they became companions. They chose to stay with us, and we chose to care for them." "But why?" asked a crystalline student. "What do you gain from it?" As if answering the question, Mr. Whiskers jumped down from the desk and walked over to Pearl, rubbing against her misty form and purring. Pearl glowed with delight. "That," Tom said, smiling. "Friendship, comfort, a connection with another living being. Pets give us companionship and unconditional affection. They make our homes warmer, our lives richer." By the end of class, Mr. Whiskers had received pets from almost every student. Even the hive cluster had taken turns gently stroking his fur, their antennae wiggling with excitement when he purred for them. As the students left, Tom noticed they weren't rushing out like yesterday. Several lingered to get one last pet or take a closer look. Pearl was the last to leave, her misty form glowing with a warm pink tinge. "Professor," she said softly, "do all Earth pets show such kindness?" Tom smiled. "Each in their own way. Would you like to learn about more of them?" Pearl's form brightened even more. "Yes, please." Looking at Mr. Whiskers curled up in his cat bed, Tom knew today had been a breakthrough. Sometimes the best way to understand someone wasn't through words, but through the simple, universal language of friendship, even if that friendship came with fur and whiskers. After the success with Mr. Whiskers, Tom noticed a dramatic change in his classroom. The students no longer huddled at the back, and Pearl had permanently moved to the front row. Even the hive cluster had spread out, their antennae relaxed rather than alert for danger. "Today," Tom said, activating the holographic display, "we're going to learn how humans first made friends with animals." The first image showed an ancient cave painting of wolves and humans hunting together. The class leaned forward with interest. "This is from thousands of years ago," Tom explained. "Back then, wolves and humans were both hunters. We started by sharing food." A crystalline student named Glimmer raised a facet. "But wolves are the scary ones from last week. How did you stop them from eating you?" Tom smiled. "We didn't stop them. We understood them. Look at this." He switched to a video reconstruction of ancient humans leaving scraps near their camps. The bravest wolves would come closer for food. Over many generations, these braver wolves had puppies that were also less afraid of humans. They changed. Pearl's misty form swirled with curiosity. "Exactly. We call it domestication. The friendlier wolves stayed near humans, got better food, and had safer lives. Their puppies became even friendlier." Tom showed them a series of images displaying the gradual changes from wolf to dog. After thousands of years, those wolves became the dogs you saw in the pictures. One of the hive students clicked thoughtfully. "Like how our ancestors selectively grew fungi for better nutrients." "Very similar." Tom beamed. "Humans did this with many animals. Look here." He displayed a timeline showing the domestication of various species: cats, horses, cows, chickens, and more. "But Professor," Glimmer chimed, their crystal facets catching the light, "why so many different types?" "Each animal offered something different. Dogs helped us hunt and protected us. Cats caught pests that ate our food. Horses helped us travel. But something unexpected happened along the way." Tom paused, making sure he had their attention. "We started caring about them beyond their useful purposes." He showed them a series of images: a person crying while holding an old dog, a child sleeping with a cat, a farmer naming each of their cows. Humans formed emotional bonds with these animals. We didn't just keep them for food or work anymore. We kept them because we cared about them. Pearl drifted closer to the hologram. "Like you and Mr. Whiskers." "Exactly like that. Mr. Whiskers doesn't need to catch mice in my quarters. I feed him special food. I keep him because he's my friend." A quiet hive student named Buzz raised their antenna. "But isn't it dangerous, having predators near you while you sleep?" Tom pulled up his personal photos. "Here's Mr. Whiskers when I found him. He was a tiny kitten, alone and hungry." The image showed a small, wet orange kitten. Several students made sounds of surprise at how small he was. "I bottle-fed him every few hours. When he was scared, he would sleep on my chest to feel safe." Tom showed them more pictures of Mr. Whiskers growing up. "He trusts me completely now, and I trust him." That's what domestication really created: trust between species. The class was silent, processing this information. Finally, Glimmer spoke up. "On our world, we maintain distance from other species. The idea of trust between different life forms. It's strange." "Strange," Pearl added, her mist glowing softly, "but beautiful." Tom nodded. "Humans might come from what you call a death world, but that taught us something important. Sometimes survival isn't just about being strong or dangerous. Sometimes it's about making connections, even with those who seem different from us. As class ended, Tom noticed his students lingering again, studying the images with new interest. Pearl stayed behind, her form shifting through gentle colors. "Professor," she asked, could we maybe meet more Earth pets?" Tom smiled. This was exactly what he'd hoped for. Not just teaching about pets, but opening minds to new possibilities of connection. "I think that can be arranged," he said. "In fact, I have an idea for your next assignment." Looking at his students' growing curiosity, Tom knew they were ready for the next step. It was time to move from learning about pets to understanding them firsthand. Today, Tom announced to his class, "Each of you will research a different Earth pet. Your task is to understand why humans bond with these animals and what makes them suitable as companions." The classroom buzzed with excitement. Over the past weeks, the fear of Earth's creatures had been replaced by genuine curiosity. Even Dean Float had noticed the change, commenting on how the students now gathered around Tom between classes instead of avoiding him. "I've prepared a list of different pets," Tom continued, sending the data to their tablets. "Each of you can choose one to study." Buzz, the quiet hive student, was the first to raise an antenna. "Professor, what are these ant farms?" Tom smiled. "I thought you might be interested in those. They're small colonies of ants that humans keep in transparent containers to observe and learn from." Buzz's antennae wiggled with excitement. "Humans study smaller hive species. For learning?" "Yes, and for enjoyment too. Many humans find it relaxing to watch ants build their tunnels and work together." Pearl's misty form drifted up next. "What about these? Rabbits?" "Ah, excellent choice. They're gentle herbivores known for being soft and caring." Tom showed a hologram of a fluffy bunny. "Many people keep them as indoor pets." Glimmer, the crystalline student, studied their list intently. "These aquariums. They're like tiny water worlds." "Exactly." Tom projected an image of a home aquarium. "Humans keep fish and other aquatic creatures in controlled environments. Some find it peaceful to watch them swim." The class spent the next hour choosing their subjects. Each student seemed to gravitate toward pets that reflected aspects of their own species. The hive students were fascinated by communal pets like ants and honeybees. The crystalline students chose colorful fish and coral tanks. The blue mists preferred gentle creatures like rabbits and hamsters. Over the next few days, the classroom transformed. Students brought in their research, sharing discoveries with increasing enthusiasm. Buzz created a detailed presentation about ant farms, complete with diagrams of tunnel systems that looked remarkably like their own homeworld's architecture. "Humans," they clicked excitedly. "They understand the beauty of collective work." Glimmer's project on aquariums revealed unexpected insights. "The humans," they chimed, their facets gleaming. "They recreate entire ecosystems in miniature. It's like they build tiny versions of nature itself." But it was Pearl's presentation about rabbits that truly captured the class's attention. Her misty form glowed with soft colors as she showed videos of rabbits interacting with their owners. "Look," she said softly, "how they come when called, how they show affection. They're prey animals, like my species was long ago. But with human care, they learn to trust, to play, to love." Tom watched proudly as each student presented their findings. The fear of Earth's deadly creatures had been replaced by understanding. They were seeing what he'd hoped they would, that humanity's relationship with animals wasn't about dominance, but about connection. Near the end of the presentations, one of the hive students raised an interesting point. "Professor, we've noticed something. Each species of pet seems to keep some of their natural behaviors, but they adapt to live with humans. How do humans manage this balance?" Tom nodded approvingly. "That's an excellent observation. We don't try to completely change these animals. Instead, we learn to understand and work with their natural behaviors. It's about mutual adaptation." Pearl drifted forward, like how Mr. Whiskers still has claws and hunting instincts, but he uses them for play instead. "Exactly. And that's what makes each pet unique and special. As the final presentation ended, Tom could see the impact their research had made. His students weren't just learning about Earth pets, they were beginning to understand a fundamental aspect of humanity: our ability to form bonds across species boundaries. "Professor," Pearl asked as class ended, her form glowing with hope, "do you think, would it be possible for non-humans to have pets too?" Tom smiled. This was the question he'd been waiting for. "Actually," he said, "I've been talking with Dean Float about something special. How would you all like to visit Earth's first off-world pet shelter?" The excitement that filled the room told him everything he needed to know. They were ready for the next step, from understanding pets to experiencing the bond firsthand. The off-world pet shelter occupied an entire section of Station GL7's habitat ring. Tom led his excited students through its main entrance, where Dr. Maria Green, the shelter's director, waited to greet them. "Welcome to New Horizons Pet Shelter," she said warmly. "We've adapted this facility to house Earth pets in space while making them comfortable for non-human interactions." The students clustered around the viewing windows, amazed by the variety of creatures inside. Different rooms maintained Earth-normal gravity and atmosphere, while special interaction chambers allowed aliens to safely meet the animals. "We'll start with the gentlest pets," Dr. Green explained, leading them to the first chamber. "We found that rabbits and guinea pigs adapt well to meeting non-human species." Pearl was the first to enter the interaction room, her misty form quivering with excitement. Through a special membrane that maintained the proper atmosphere for both sides, a small group of rabbits hopped closer, curious about the floating blue cloud. "They're not afraid," Pearl whispered, amazed as a white rabbit pressed its nose against the membrane where her form touched it. "Animals often sense kindness, regardless of species," Tom explained. "They respond to gentle energy." The crystalline students were next, their facets twinkling with delight as they watched tropical fish swim in a massive aquarium. The fish seemed equally fascinated by the light refracting through the crystal beings. "The fish glimmer chimes softly. They dance with our light." The Hyde students spent long minutes observing an ant colony housed in a complex tunnel system. Buzz clicked rapidly with excitement. "Look, they used pheromone trails, like us, and their tunnel architecture. It's so similar to our deep colonies." Dr. Green smiled. "That's why we believe cross-species pet adoption could work. Many Earth animals are adaptable and can form bonds with different types of beings." The tour continued through various sections. They saw gentle dogs that had been specially trained for space station life, cats that played in zero-gravity rooms, and small birds that seemed delighted by the floating blue mists. In one room, a golden retriever named Max demonstrated how he'd learned to play with crystalline beings, gently nudging a ball toward them without scratching their surfaces. The crystalline students discovered they could entertain the dog by creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "This is amazing," one of them chimed. "The dog understands we're different, but still wants to play." The most touching moment came when they reached the small mammal section. A group of hamsters, curious about the blue mists, began following their gentle movements from inside their habitat. Pearl drifted as close as she could to the membrane. "Professor," she asked, her voice full of hope, "could one of us actually adopt a pet?" Tom exchanged glances with Dr. Green, who nodded. "Actually, that's why we're here. The shelter has been working on an adaptation program. They'd been training animals to interact safely with different species and developing special habitats that work for both the pets and their non-human owners." The class erupted in excited sounds, clicks, chimes, and swishing noises. Dr. Green held up her hands with a smile. "It's not a simple process," she cautioned. "You'd need to learn proper care techniques, understand their needs, and commit to their well-being, just like human pet owners do." "We can learn," Pearl said firmly, her mist forming determined patterns. "You've taught us so much already, Professor. We understand now that these bonds are about responsibility and care, not just having something cute to look at." Tom felt pride swell in his chest. This was exactly what he'd hoped for. Not just acceptance of Earth's creatures, but a true understanding of what it meant to care for another species. Then, Dr. Green said, "Let's talk about the adoption process. We'll need to match each of you with a pet that suits your species and living situation." As the class eagerly gathered around Dr. Green to learn more, Tom watched Pearl drift back to the rabbit enclosure. A small brown rabbit hopped right up to her again, seeming perfectly comfortable with the misty being. Sometimes, Tom thought, the best way to change perceptions wasn't through lectures or books, but through real connections. These students weren't just learning about Earth's pets anymore. They were discovering the universal language of companionship, a language that transcended species, planets, and even the vast reaches of space. 3 months had passed since the first official galactic pet adoption program began. Tom stood in his classroom, now transformed with pictures of students and their pets decorating the walls. The change in the academy had been remarkable. What started as one class's experiment had sparked a cultural revolution. Pearl floated near her desk, a specially designed habitat sphere hovering beside her. Inside, a small brown dwarf hamster named Bubble ran happily on his wheel. The sphere maintained Earth normal conditions inside while allowing Pearl's misty form to interact with her pet through specialized sensors that translated her touch into gentle physical contact. Bubble learned a new trick, Pearl announced proudly. "He comes when I change my colors to green." Her form shifted, and sure enough, the little hamster stopped running and scampered to the side of the sphere nearest to her. Buzz had become the proud caretaker of a small ant colony. The hive student had worked with Dr. Green to design a habitat that mimicked both Earth and hive world conditions. The colony's architecture, they clicked excitedly, shows influences from both worlds now. Glimmer's aquarium had become a favorite gathering spot in the crystalline dormitory. The fish had learned to follow the light patterns the crystalline students created, creating beautiful underwater light shows. "Professor Wells." Dean Float's voice came from the doorway. The dean's gaseous form seemed more settled these days, ever since they'd adopted a pair of zebra finches that loved flying through the special chamber in their office. "Good morning, Dean," Tom smiled. "Here for the progress report." "Actually, I'm here with news." The dean's form swirled happily. "The Galactic Council has officially recognized the pet adoption program as a breakthrough in interspecies relations. They want to expand it to other stations." The class erupted in excited sounds. Pearl glowed so brightly that Bubble did an excited spin in his sphere. "That's not all," the dean continued. "Professor Wells, they want you to help develop the curriculum for other schools. Your class has proven that understanding between species can come from unexpected places." Tom looked around at his students, remembering how they'd once huddled in fear at the back of the room. Now each of them had formed a unique bond with an Earth creature, learning and growing in ways nobody had expected. The council scientists are particularly interested in how different species adapted to care for Earth pets, the dean added. Pearl's color training method with Bubble has already inspired new communication studies. Pearl glowed with pride. She had become something of a pioneer, documenting how her misty form could interact with small animals through various color patterns and density changes. "And there's more," the dean's translator crackled with excitement. "The Human Diplomatic Corps wants to use the program as a cultural exchange initiative. They believe it could help other species understand humans better." Tom smiled, remembering his original goal of showing that humans weren't just Deathworlders. Through their pets, they demonstrated humanity's capacity for gentleness, patience, and interspecies bonds. After the dean left, Tom addressed his class. "When we started this journey, I hoped to show you that humans weren't as scary as you thought. But you've shown me something too, that the ability to form bonds across species isn't unique to humans. You've each found your own way to connect with and care for your pets." "Professor," Pearl drifted forward, Bubble's sphere floating beside her. "Do you think someday there might be pets from other worlds too? Not just Earth animals?" Tom considered this. Why not? What makes a pet special isn't where it comes from, but the bond it shares with its caregiver. The class spent the rest of the session sharing their latest pet stories. Buzz's ants had built a new tunnel that mimicked the spiral architecture of their home world. Glimmer's fish had learned to swim in formations that complemented crystalline light patterns. Each student had discovered something new about themselves through caring for their pets. As Tom watched his students interact with their animal companions, he realized they'd created something more than a simple pet adoption program. They'd built a bridge between worlds, proving that love, care, and companionship could transcend any boundary, even the vast differences between species from across the galaxy. The Deathworlder label had faded away, replaced by a new understanding. Humans weren't just survivors from a harsh world. They were teachers in the art of forming bonds with other species. And now, thanks to a simple class about pets, that knowledge was spreading throughout the galaxy, one adoption at a time.